Everyone thinks avoidants pull away because they don't care. But the truth, when an avoidant feels deep attachment, they don't get louder. They get quieter, more intentional. And their behavior shifts in ways most people completely miss. Here are the signs that an avoidant is actually bonding with you, deeply, silently, and in their own guarded way. When an avoidant begins to form real attachments, the first change isn't dramatic emotion or sudden vulnerability. It's a subtle softening of their edges. They don't announce it, they don't confess it. They simply stop running from you. The presence that once felt overwhelming, intrusive, or threatening suddenly becomes tolerable, even calming. They start lingering in conversations a little longer, staying physically nearby instead of drifting off, and allowing silence without feeling the urge to escape. This shift alone is monumental because avoidants only relax their guard around someone who makes them feel emotionally safe without demanding too much too quickly. Then comes the quiet initiation. Avoidants rarely chase with intensity, but when attachment deepens, they begin reaching out in understated ways, sending something funny, asking simple questions, showing up in small pockets of your day. It's not grand or romantic. It's gentle, almost invisible. But to an avoidant, that tiny effort is an admission of trust. They're letting you in without saying it directly, and that is their version of pursuit. As connection grows, something else happens. They start mirroring you. Not because they're trying to impress you, but because your presence affects them more than they want to admit. They adopt your tone, your timing, your pattern. It's subconscious bonding. The kind avoidants don't realize they're doing, you'll notice it before they do. It's the heart moving before the mind catches up. But perhaps the most telling sign is the moment they share something personal, a memory, a fear, a feeling, and immediately retreat. That panic afterward isn't rejection, it's realization that they let you see past their armor. Avoidants don't fear opening up, they fear what opening up means. And if they share with you, it's because the attachment is already there. Another silent sign appears when you pull back. Avoidants act tough and different, unbothered, but when your absence hits them, they feel it deeply. They replay your conversations, check old messages, and wonder what shifted. They don't chase publicly, but they panic quietly, and that inner reaction reveals everything. Finally, the deepest sign they make space for you. Avoidants fiercely protect their routine and independence, so when they start integrating you into their world, even in small ways, that is emotional investment at its highest level. They remember details, show up when you least expect it, and allow you into parts of their life no one else sees. This isn't convenience. This is commitment on their terms. In the avoidant world, deep attachment is never loud. It's seen in the subtle risks, the softened moments, the quiet choices that say, I trust you, even if I don't know how to say it. Avoidants don't trust closeness. Closeness feels like danger. So when they stop finding excuses, stop disappearing, stop needing space every 10 minutes, that's not random. That's a signal. They're letting their nervous system settle around you. And avoidants only do that with someone who feels safe. When an avoidant begins to feel a deeper attachment forming, the very first shift you'll notice isn't a grand confession or a sudden emotional breakthrough. It's the quiet, almost invisible act of staying in the room, staying in the conversation, staying in the connection without feeling the instinctive need to escape. This is monumental because avoidance is not about disliking people, it's about self-protection. Their nervous system is wired to interpret closeness as a threat. So when they slow down, when they breathe easier, when they sit next to you without scanning for exits, it means something inside them is learning that your presence isn't something they need to defend against. And make no mistake, avoidants are masters of avoidance for a reason. They can disappear within minutes. They can detach emotionally in seconds. They can create distance before you even realize the energy shifted. So when those patterns stop happening around you, it's never an accident. It's never coincidence. It's a profound adjustment happening beneath the surface. Their fear is relaxing in your presence. Their guard is lowering. Their instinct to run is losing its power. You'll notice it gradually at first. The person who always had plans suddenly has time. The person who used busy as a shield slowly lets moments stretch longer than they used to. The person who once tensed up in emotional conversations now leans into them, not fully, not fearlessly, but just enough to show you they're trying. And that effort in the avoidant world is everything because effort means safety. Effort means trust. Effort means they feel something that's strong enough to challenge their patterns. Another subtle sign appears in their body language. Avoidants who once kept physical distance begin to relax their posture, allow soft eye contact, and stay near you without feeling overwhelmed. Their breathing slows, their shoulders drop, their voice becomes less guarded. These physical cues are powerful indicators that their internal system is no longer screaming danger. Instead, it's whispering, maybe it's okay. Maybe I can be here. Even their silence changes. With most people, avoidants use silence as a shield. But with someone they're attached to, silence becomes comfort instead of escape. They don't rush to fill the gaps. They don't withdraw into their mind. They simply exist beside you. That is connection on their terms. When an avoidant stops running from your presence, it means you've become the exception. The person whose energy doesn't activate their fear, the person whose closeness doesn't feel like pressure, the person whose presence feels more like safety than threat. And in the avoidant attachment world, that is one of the highest signs of deep emotional attachment they can give. Avoidants never chase the traditional way, no big good morning texts, no constant check-ins. But when the attachment is deep, they initiate in a quiet, almost hidden way, sending a meme, asking how your day was, showing up in your messages at night. It's soft chasing, the version they feel safe doing. For an avoidant, initiation is not about bold gestures or obvious pursuit. It's about controlled vulnerability. They don't want to appear needy. They don't want to risk misreading your interest, and they definitely don't want to step into the emotional exposure that traditional chasing requires. But when someone begins to matter to them, you'll notice a shift. They start reaching out in tiny, almost effortless ways that reveal much more than they think. That random meme. It's their way of saying, I'm thinking about you, but I'm scared to say it directly. That late night message, it's their comfort zone opening up. Because nighttime feels safer, slower, less intense. That simple, how was your day, is not a casual question. It's their heart poking through the armor, trying to build a connection without overwhelming themselves. Avoidants treat initiation like a negotiation between fear and desire. Their fear tells them to stay distant, stay guarded, stay safe. But their desire, their attachment, nudges them into your orbit over and over again, just softly enough that they can retreat if they need to. This is why their initiating rarely looks like romance in the traditional sense. It looks like crumbs to outsiders. But in the avoidant world, those crumbs are deeply meaningful actions. They're not playing games. They're trying not to lose their independence while also trying not to lose you. Over time, you'll notice these subtle touches becoming patterns. They won't bombard you with messages, but they'll consistently find a way to re-enter your day. They'll respond faster. They'll remember things you mentioned casually. They'll circle back to topics because they're genuinely interested. And the more emotionally safe they feel with you, the more visible this soft initiating becomes. It's never loud, it's never dramatic, it's intentional, measured, and emotionally controlled. That it's still initiation, their initiation. And here's the part most people misunderstand. Avoidants initiate when they trust you not to misinterpret their effort as an invitation to rush in or cling tightly. They're not afraid of connection. They're afraid of losing themselves in it. So their reaching out is cautious, but genuine, small, but consistent, understated, but emotionally significant. It's them saying, I'm here in the only way I know how to be without overwhelming myself. When an avoidant starts initiating, even subtly, it means you've crossed a threshold inside them. You've moved from someone I keep at a distance to someone I don't want to drift away from. It's their version of chasing quiet, careful, and real. Avoidance, fear dependence, but when the connection hits them, they start reflecting your tone, your timing, your phrasing. It's unconscious. It's their attachment system waking up. It's their heart saying, don't lose this person. For an avoidant, Mirroring is not a conscious strategy. They're not studying you or intentionally copying your behavior. Instead, it happens in the background of their mind, quietly, naturally, and only when you've become emotionally significant to them. Avoidants are hyper independent by design. So the moment they begin to reflect pieces of you back to yourself, it means you've softened something inside them. You've bypassed the guarding, the distancing, the emotional detachment they rely on to feel safe. Mirroring is the first clue that your presence isn't just tolerated, it's influencing them. You'll notice this in subtle ways. Maybe they start texting with the same rhythm as you. If you send longer messages, theirs become slightly longer. If you use emojis sparingly, so do they. If your tone shifts from playful to serious, their responses adjust instinctively. They begin matching your pacing, your energy, even the way you phrase things. And they're not doing it to impress you. They're doing it because emotional alignment feels safer than emotional contrast. Mirroring creates harmony, and harmony lowers their anxiety. This unconscious matching also shows up in real life interactions. If you become calm, they relax too. If you lean in slightly during a conversation, they find themselves leaning in without noticing. If you share something vulnerable, they may respond with a vulnerability of their own. Maybe not immediately, but in their own delayed, cautious way. Mirroring becomes their bridge to connection, a way of saying, I feel close to you, but I'm afraid to show it too directly. Because despite their fear of dependence, avoidants crave emotional safety more than anything. And when they mirror you, it's because your presence regulates them. You're not triggering their survival instincts. You're grounding them. You're giving them a pattern to sync with, and syncing feels safer than standing alone. Without realizing it, they start to adopt small parts of your emotional world because it feels steadier than theirs. What makes this so powerful is that avoidants don't mirror people they don't care about. They don't reflect someone who feels temporary or replaceable. They only mirror when their guard has begun to lower, when their walls have softened, when attachment has already started weaving itself into their reactions. Their body picks up cues before their mind catches up, because their heart is months ahead of their logic. And that final unspoken truth, when an avoidant mirrors you, it's their hidden way of holding on. Their heart is saying, stay close, but don't overwhelm me. Their behavior is saying, I'm connecting with you, even if I can't admit it. And deep down, their attachment system is whispering the words they're too scared to say out loud. Don't lose this person. If an avoidant opens up even a little, it means you've touched a deep layer. You made it past the walls. But right after that vulnerability, they often pull back, not because they regret it, but because it mattered. When an avoidant shares something personal, it's never casual. They don't open up for fun, and they definitely don't do it just to make conversation. Vulnerability is a calculated risk for them, when their mind usually tells them out of. So when something slips through, even a small detail about their fears, their past, or their feelings, it means their emotional guard malfunctioned for a moment. And that malfunction only happens around someone who has quietly become important to them. But here's the part most people misunderstand. The panic that follows isn't rejection. It isn't distance because they no longer trust you. It's distance because they suddenly realize how much they do. When avoidants feel something deeply, their instinct is to retreat, to create space, to rebuild the walls that just cracked open. They're not running from you. They're running from the feeling of being exposed. Vulnerability makes their internal alarms go off. It tells them they've revealed a part of themselves they usually keep hidden, and the fear that follows is almost physical. You might notice the shift immediately. One moment, the conversation is flowing effortlessly, and they're telling you something real, something about their childhood, their wounds, their insecurities, or a dream they've never said out loud. The next moment, the energy changes. They become quiet. Their responses get shorter. They pull back emotionally, sometimes even physically. Some avoidants disappear for a few hours a day or longer. Others stay present but become slightly colder, as if trying to convince themselves they didn't just open up to you. But none of this pullback means the moment was fake. In fact, the more they retreat afterward, the more meaningful the vulnerability probably was. Avoidants panic only when they care, only when the connection is real, only when the truth they revealed exposes their heart in a way that feels dangerously intimate. Their mind starts spiraling. Did I reveal too much? Do they see me differently now? Did I make myself dependent? Did I give them power over me? It's not about you, it's about the fear of no longer being fully in control of their emotional world. And ironically, it's the intensity of the connection that triggers their retreat. But after that initial panic fades, something else happens. They return. Carefully, quietly, sometimes awkwardly, but they come back. They may not address what they shared. They may pretend nothing happened. But their return is the real message. It means the connection matters more than the fear. It means the vulnerability didn't push them away. It just overwhelmed them. And the mere fact that they opened up at all is one of the strongest signs of deep attachment an avoidant can show. Their panic is not a sign they don't care. It's proof that they do more than they're ready to admit. Avoidants pretend they don't notice when you go silent. They act unfazed. But inside, they spiral quietly. They check your last conversation. They replay your tone. They wonder what changed. If your silence affects them emotionally, mentally, physically, that's attachment. When an avoidant begins to feel a genuine bond with someone, the first place the impact shows is not in their actions, but in their internal world. They don't voice their worry. They don't ask if something is wrong. They don't chase or confront or question you directly. That level of emotional exposure feels too dangerous. But behind their calm exterior, the silence you give them becomes loud. Loud enough to unsettle them, loud enough to make them think, loud enough to wake up emotions they've spent years suppressing. They read your absence the same way others read your presence. When you're consistent, they relax into the rhythm. When you pull away, even subtly, the avoidant immediately feels a shift. They might not show it, but they absorb it. They replay your last words, scanning for signs they missed. They wonder if they said something wrong or if you've simply lost interest. They start noticing the empty spaces where your messages usually appear. They feel the emotional air change when your energy is gone, and avoidants only notice that when someone has become significant. This is the part people rarely see. Avoidants don't panic outwardly, they panic inwardly. Their thoughts speed up while their actions slow down. They freeze instead of react. The silence becomes a mirror, reflecting the depth of their attachment back to them. And they're not always prepared for what they see. They ask themselves questions they don't want to face. Why do I care? Why is this bothering me? Why can't I just detach like I always do? Your silence exposes a truth they've been avoiding, that they're emotionally invested. For most of their lives, avoidants have relied on distance as a shield. When things got too close, they pulled back. When someone disappointed them, they shut down. When connection became complicated, they withdrew before they could be hurt. But when someone special pulls away, their old strategies don't work the same. The usual numbness isn't there. Instead, they feel a heavy, nagging discomfort, a tightening in their chest, a restlessness in their thoughts, a quiet ache in the silence you leave behind. And what makes it even more intense is that they refuse to admit it. Not to you, not to anyone, not even fully to themselves. They try to rationalize their reaction. It's nothing. I'm fine. They're just busy. I don't need them. But the truth lives in their behavior. They reread your messages. They hover over the chat box, but don't type. They check your social media more often than they want to. They wonder if you're losing interest, or worse, if their distance finally pushed you away. Yet, they won't chase. Chasing feels too vulnerable, too exposing, too risky. Instead, they get quiet. And that silence isn't indifference. It's fear. Fear that you're slipping away. Fear that they've misplayed their walls. Fear that the person they didn't expect to care about has suddenly become someone they can't bear to lose. Your silence becomes a test they didn't prepare for, and the moment it deeply affects them emotionally, mentally, physically, is the moment their attachment becomes undeniable. Because avoidants don't react loudly, they react privately. And the quieter they get when you pull back, the louder their attachment becomes. Avoidants protect their independence like armor. So when they start adjusting plans, remembering details, offering help, making time, that is rare. That is intentional. That is emotional investment. This is their version of I care about you more than you think. Avoidants don't give up their personal space easily. Their routines, their solitude, their freedom, these are the pillars that make them feel safe and in control. Their schedule isn't just structure, it's protection. Their alone time isn't just preference, it's survival. So when an avoidant begins to rearrange any part of their life to include you, it's not a small gesture, it's a confession wrapped in subtle actions. It's their way of saying you're important without having to use words they're not yet ready to say. You'll notice this shift quietly at first. They start planning ahead, not because they suddenly became organized, but because they want to make sure they don't lose opportunities to see you. They might adjust their work schedule, change when they run errands, or even sacrifice time they normally protect fiercely, all so they can fit you into their world, and they won't announce it. They won't say, I made time for you today. They'll just show up. And in the avoiding universe, showing up is one of the highest forms of intimacy. You'll also see it in the details they remember. Avoidants live inside their own mental fortress. So the fact that they're paying attention to what you like, what you dislike, what matters to you, that's emotional presence. They'll recall the coffee you prefer, the stories you casually mentioned, the things you said weeks ago that you don't even remember. They hold on to these details because you've become important enough to remember. And then there's the help they offer. Avoidants are extremely self reliant and they expect others to be the same. So, if they step out of that mindset and offer support, even in small ways, it means they're opening a part of themselves they normally keep locked away. They help only when they genuinely care. Whether it's fixing something for you, guiding you through a problem, or simply being present when you're stressed, that effort is their emotional investment showing through their actions. Cute, but the most powerful sign is the time they give you. Time is the one thing avoidants guard more fiercely than anything else. Not because they're selfish, but because time alone is how they regulate their emotions and maintain their inner balance. When they willingly share that time or even sacrifice it, they're letting you into the space that usually belongs only to them. They're allowing you to exist where they once kept everyone else. Avoidants don't articulate the shift. They don't say, I'm making room for you because you matter. They express it through behavior, the changed schedule, the thoughtful detail, the unexpected help, the consistent. And the truth is, they only make space for people they believe won't suffocate them, pressure them, or demand more than they can give. So if an avoidant is weaving you into their life, even subtly, it means you've become a source of safety instead of stress. This kind of effort might look small to someone else, but through the avoidant lens, it's significant. It's intentional. It's vulnerable. Making space is their quiet, understated version of choosing you. It's their silent message. I care about you more than you think and more than I know how to say. Avoidants don't show deep attachment loudly. They show it through the small moments, the tiny risks, the subtle openings. If you're seeing these signs, you're not just someone they like. You're someone their walls finally too. Avoidance move through connection like someone walking barefoot across broken glass, slow, cautious, hyper aware of every step. Their heart has been trained to flinch before it feels, to retreat before it's harmed, to silence itself before it speaks. So when deep attachment forms, it never explodes. It reveals itself through these micro moments that feel too subtle to notice, but too meaningful to ignore. Because avoidants aren't afraid of people. They're afraid of the feeling of closeness becoming a trap. And when that fear melts into attachment, it doesn't arrive in fireworks, it arrives in whispers. You won't see grand gestures or bold declarations. Instead, you'll feel a shift. The shift in how they look at you a second longer than they intended. The shift in how they remember that offhand comment you made weeks ago. The shift in how they linger in the conversation. Even when their instinct tells them to pull back. Those tiny cracks in the armor are the avoidant version of I'm letting you in. And if you see enough of them, you're witnessing something rare, something most people never get from them. Because avoidants love in the quiet ways. They love in that I didn't run this time. They love in that I showed up, even though I was scared. They love in that I'm trying, even if you can't see it. Their affection isn't loud or dramatic. It's steady, hesitant, and layered with meaning. Their attachment reveals itself through the choices they make when no one is watching. The choice to stay, the choice to reach out, the choice to trust you with parts of them. They usually bury. And the truth is, avoidants don't surrender easily. Their walls aren't casual barriers, they're structures built from years of disappointment, overwhelm, and emotional overstimulation. Breaking through them isn't about charm or pressure, it's about consistency, patience, and genuine safety. So if you're seeing these signs, if you're witnessing these small but powerful openings, you've become the exception. You've become the one person who didn't trigger their alarm system, the one presence that didn't suffocate them, the one connection that didn't demand more than they could give. Avoidants don't surrender to people who push. They surrender to people who understand, people who give them space without abandoning them, people who offer warmth without overwhelming them, people who make closeness feel like a choice rather than a threat. So when an avoidant lets their guard down around you, even for a moment, it's not accidental, it's earned. Their deep attachment isn't the loud, passionate kind. It's the steady, intentional kind. It's the I'll shift for you kind. It's the you matter more than my fear kind. It's the kind that grows quietly but roots deeply in ways they may not even recognize until they face the possibility of losing you. So if you're seeing these signs, the softened eyes, the gentle efforts, the subtle risks, the moments where they stay instead of flee, understand something important. You're not just someone they like. You're the person their walls finally surrendered to. And for an avoidant, that is the loudest love they'll ever show.